Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Author AMA. So really what this is I asked all of you what questions you may have about writing, being an author, or me, I guess, in general, because it's an Ask Me Anything, because I wanted to give an opportunity to make a video that directly answered your questions. If any of your questions are not answered in this video, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them in the questions, or maybe, you know what, fuck it, I'll use like the shorts thing and try and respond to it that way, and give you a video response. We'll see. But these are the questions that I got, and some of them are kind of interesting. The first question is one that I'm sure many of you have had as you've continued on writing, and it came from Maggie over on the Discord. The question was, how do you find an editor? Well, finding an editor is not a simple one-step process. It's actually a process that took me several fucking months, and I did it by going to the Editors Freelance Association, the EFA, and I'll link that down below because I think it's one of the better places to go to find people that will be freelance editors. And I think it's important when you're going into the editing process to have this idea of, I know that this is going to be a working relationship for a while. I have worked with my editor for going on, is it 8 years now? Or maybe it's like 6 years. It's been a while. It has been a long time. And I think that's why it's really important to take your time when trying to find an editor. There's other places you can go as well. Like you can go to Fiverr. You can basically anywhere you can find freelancers, you can find an editor. I just personally liked the EFA. What you can go in there and you can put out your project, and then people will come back with basically bids on your project. People will be able to set prices, and the EFA actually has a generalization of how much you should pay for each type of editing. Hopefully that answers the question. Freelance websites, EFA, go to the EFA. And this next question is very much tied to that one, and it comes from Outlawman76, also on the Discord. The question was, best advice for someone looking for an editor on a budget. Is it a case of you get what you pay for, or are there actually quality editors services for the starving artists among us? So this is a tough one to answer, and it's one that I've actually gotten some pushback on in the past, because editing is important. Editing is essential if you are going to be selling your books. I think it is our responsibility as authors to make sure that the product we are putting out is at least professionally edited. And there's a reason why you yourself can't do it, because as much as you edit, you're gonna miss things. You're going into a book with your own expectations of what the book should be. You know what subtext you're trying to get through. You know the motivations of your characters. You know things that your editor won't. And so having those set of eyes that are set apart, and also a set of eyes that are hopefully going to be better at certain things than you are. Like, my editor is infinitely better at grammar than I am, and that's I think as expected. So the thing about cost has to come from that perspective of, if you're going to be selling it, you need an editor, and you don't want. And then going back to the first question of, well, it's generally probably going to be a long-term business arrangement in a sense. And so you don't want to try and go cheap on that. Bad editing, cheap editing is going to be bad, cheap editing. They may catch some things, but you also may spend more time trying to fix their edits than accepting their edits. And that's just, if the whole idea of editing is to get a more professional product and to save yourself some time, you're kind of losing out on both parts of that. So I think the best advice I can give is, basically, if you're going to want to try and save money on editing, the best way you can go about it is doing more of it yourself. So take extra time with your work. Take extra time going through the drafts, finding things. Use things like, hell, I will not send something to my editor until I've put it through Grammarly and until I've done it through a text-to-speech to try and find things. And then also just word count. When you're editing, you're paying by word. So, if you can cut out shit, if you can if you can convey the emotions and the thoughts and the things that you want to in a shorter time period, well, then you're going to save yourself some money just because there's fewer words to edit. But what I'm saying about editing more yourself and trimming down and all that is because there's different types of editing. So you have like developmental edit, which is the biggest edit, and it's going to cost the most. I'll put up on screen the different costs of editing from EFA. And so you can see if the more you edit, the less you'll need. So the less editing you'll need. So you'll have a base minimum price of like copy editing and at least like one run through of your book. And honestly, if you can afford it, more than one. But that's, I think, really what it comes down to is more editing yourself means you pay less because you don't have to rely so much on the editor. And then shop around. That's the other part of it. Shop around for an editor. Find an editor that seems to match what you're going for and also has pricing that matches what you're going for. You're gonna be paying per word, and they should give you an upfront idea of what they're gonna be charging you per word. When I went to EFA and put my book out there, I got over 100 responses asking to edit my book. A lot of the prices were very similar, but don't try and like bargain with editors because they're people too and they have jobs too, and they're part of this creative process. But it is warranted to look at, okay, well, this using pricing as a potential way to cut off certain editors because they may cost too much for you and they just may not be the right editor for you. It's gonna cost money though. It just is. I'm years and years into this. I have 3 books out and I am still deeply in debt for my writing. I am still in the red. I have sold over 1,000 books and I am in the red. And a lot of that was editing. Editing is a huge upfront cost. It is the biggest upfront cost that you're gonna pay. It's just one of those unavoidable ones. But yeah, hopefully that didn't discourage you too much. And this next question was actually a really interesting one. It comes from another YouTuber, and I'm gonna link their channel down below because they have a fantastic channel. And if you like this channel, you'll like that channel. I want to, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation of this name, so I apologize. But Horia M. Ramos. And they ask, and again, I want you to consider answering this yourself. You don't have to write it down or anything, but it's something worth like keeping in mind for yourself and for your own writing. And the question that they asked, what's the emotion you think your readers experience the most as they read your books? And this was one that I had to sit with for a while because I had to think, what is the emotion that I want them to experience the most? And what is the one that I expect them to experience most? And I came up with a couple things like sadness. Sadness came up a lot, which was, caused some retrospection on my writing. But also, like, I think like anger was another one. But I think what it really came down to was anticipation. I think that's the thing that came up the most for me when I was thinking about it, is because in my writing, I try to kind of like pull my readers along with the expectation that something is going to happen, and then something happens, but then there's more expectation of something else happening in the future. And so I think that's the emotion I expect they experience the most, probably closely followed by anger at me and sadness. That's probably mostly it. And hope, though. I hope that there's hope in there. There's always, I want people to be hopeful in general. But yeah, think about it yourself, and you know what? Maybe write it down just for yourself. Write it down in a journal or something. What is the emotion that you think they will experience the most with your writing? It's a great question. Hiyoshi-san had the next question, which actually hits really, really freaking close to home for me. Is it unrecommended to work on multiple books at the same time? Yes, I think is the good answer here. But this is also an answer where I'm like, well, it's what I would suggest, that yes, it is not a recommendation to work on multiple books at the same time, but also in practice, I've been very bad about that. So I actually started writing my second book before I had finished my first book, and I my current work in progress, my fantasy novel that's work in progress, I have been working on for 3 years. So over 3 years. And if keeping track with how many things I've published, that means 2 books have been published since I started writing this book. And I think it's because like there's one of the things that I would suggest is like a carve out here is, especially if you're like me and you just get ideas, having a platform that you can use to keep those ideas, like a note-taking platform or something like Campfire or Scrivener that will enable you to build up things, build up background, build up story, world build as you're building things, so you don't lose those things. And the benefit of that is if you come back to it after finishing the book you've been working on, well, then you'll be like, oh, this is shit. I don't like this. It's utter crap, and you can throw it away. And you didn't expend any time or energy on it. But then the other part of it is, yeah, at times it can get to a point where you get in a bit of a creative rut. I've personally been there for sure. And sometimes it does help to start working on something else. I would caution there, be careful not to spin off in too many projects so that you're not finishing any projects, because that is a real danger of doing that, because it happens. You get so invested in the new project that you don't want to work on the old project. And a quick little note here that's a kind of a cheat code with this is when you send your book to your editor, you have free time. Because your editor may take a couple months or like weeks at that best, couple months at the longest to get you their edits. You have time to work on something else. And I would suggest working on something different, because you're going to be going back to the old thing anyway once you get it back from your editor to basically accept or change their edits. So going through it and re-editing while your editor is editing is just wasted effort. So yeah, that's like the time. It's like an okay to go do other shit. This next one, I didn't want to put it at the end because it was a bit emotional. And it also comes from Maggie in the Discord. The question was, do you ever worry no one cares about your writing? If yes, what habits help you keep going? Yes, is the short answer. It doesn't matter how many people have read my books. It doesn't matter how many people have said nice things or mean things. There's plenty of mean things too. It doesn't matter how many reviews you get or anything like that. It's always there. It's one of those things that you always wonder, does anyone care? It's one of the things that if you start comparing yourself to others, it's going to make things more difficult. Well, I have this many reviews and that person has that many reviews, or I have this many sales and they have that many sales, or why doesn't anyone follow up with the sequel? Or, like those kind of questions are always there. They're constant. They're gnawing at you. And I think the thing that I recommend most to kind of deal with that, because it does happen, is try to find satisfaction in your own writing. So not to get like too therapeutic and all this, but there's a really good song by Beartooth called "I Think I Might Love Myself." And you can apply that shit to your writing. And I think it's a good practice to take time, take stock, and appreciate yourself and appreciate your writing, appreciate your growth from where you began and where you are now. Always be willing and willing to learn more and to grow more and see it as a constant thing, but also like take time to read your own writing and appreciate your own writing. Don't critique it all the time. Sometimes just read it and appreciate it. I think that's a good habit to get in, to just oh, I like this. And if I like it, then other people can like it. I think that's a really good way to do it that doesn't rely on anyone else, because when you're relying on other people to make yourself feel good about the creative things you're doing, it opens yourself up to big highs and big lows. And so I think, just try and get to a point where you can appreciate your own writing. And it's hard. I'm not going to pretend it's not. It is. Switching up the vibe a lot here, Tempotronica asks, do you ever enter writing competitions? If so, how do you find genuine ones? Yes, and I highly recommend it. Do it. Do it a lot. If you can afford it, do it. There are free ones, but also there's a lot of ones that are pretty costly. And I have entered probably about 20 or so, would be my best guess of how many I've entered over the years. I've won one. I've gotten a finalist a couple times, semi-finalist a couple times, and second place as well. And what it does is it helps, going back to like, hey, I was just telling about how, like, don't rely on other people to feel good about your shit. Well, I mean, sometimes it helps to have other people tell you that your shit is okay. And so, yeah, it's important. It does help. It also helps because if I tell you that I am an author and I have a YouTube video, okay, but if I tell you I am an award-winning author and I have a YouTube video, it just sounds better. It doesn't mean shit. I will be straight up there. It does not mean a damn thing. My writing is not better than someone who's never won an award. It's just not. There are thousands of authors, hundreds of thousands of authors that are better at writing than I am and always will be. It doesn't mean that somehow my writing has elevated. It means I had the money and I was able to put my writing in at the right time to get an award. And that, I think, is one of the things. There are a lot of awards out there. Some of them are going to be better values than others. There isn't an easy way to find the legitimate ones except just Googling it, just try and find ones that make sense. I'll include some links down below to ones that I personally like submitting to. I would avoid ones that are like popular vote because those tend to have like email signups and shit like that. And so it's asking a lot from other people. It's normally like an email farm organization, like trying to get other people's emails, not necessarily yours, but everyone who would be voting for you. So try and avoid shit like that. And also find ones that tend to like offer like a something. A good example of this is going to be the Book Life Prize. You can actually submit for a writing contest, but also get a editorial review included in that. So you're actually, whether you win or not, you're getting some kind of feedback on your writing from the people that are reviewing your writing, as well as having something you can put on your book page. And you can see it on my page. The editorial review is on my Amazon page, and Amazon has a special place for editorial reviews, and it can give you an idea a bit more of where your writing is at. We're getting a bit long on this AMA, and so I think we're gonna end with this next question, but I think it's a pretty good one. Jen RI9VG asked, this may be a me problem, but do your stories ever morph into different things while you're writing? And if so, how did you keep from getting lost in the what if weeds? Fucking hell, I feel called out in some way because I don't think that any story I've written has ever been the same thing that I originally came up with. It changes so many damn times. It's like I don't remember things that I thought of at first. And like, for example, one of the biggest examples I can give is my first books were a freaking alternate history. They were an alternate history of the American Revolution. It's obvious if you like as a recent reviewer pointed out that there was a lack of imagination with my created worlds because I had used things like Brayton. Well, it's fucking Britain, like of course it is, because it was originally that one thing. And what happened was I got to a certain point where I was like, well, you know what? I feel too confined by this. I feel too like I cannot do what I want to do. And so it changed. It completely changed. And then by the end of book 2, the entire story had changed from what it was by the end of book 1. I think it's one of those things where it is a constant evolution for me. And I think there's some benefit to being willing to being a bit fluid with how you write, because you can have the best ideas, but then as you start writing them out, maybe they don't work the way you had intended them to. And so I think just taking it as something that is a process of iteration, not just the first draft, but the second, third, fourth, fifth, all those drafts can change things. I am currently 3 years into writing my current book. I just changed the ending of it like last month. you know, and then I moved a bunch of chapters around. My beta readers said that my first chapter was shit, so I moved it, and I moved that first chapter. I broke it up, destroyed it, replaced it with another chapter. The constant change is happening a lot. The what if is always there. Sometimes it's good to listen to, sometimes it's not. And you just have to kind of find that ground, which there isn't like a simple answer for that of, well, this is the right place of listening to the what if and deciding on, no, this is what it should be. And I think one of the good ways to keep track of all that is something like a Scrivener or a Campfire or a note-taking software, something to take all those what ifs and then just kind of like, if you get an idea and you want to change something in your book, sit with it for a little bit. What I personally like to do is write stuff down as like, oh, I want this to happen. And I'll even put it within the manuscript. So I'll put it like towards the end of the manuscript. And then I'll go back to it and I'll be like, okay, when I get to it finally, like, I don't like this shit. I don't like this at all. Based on all of this stuff, I don't like it. So I'll get rid of it or change it. Or I do still like it and I want to keep it. So that what if that I put in there ended up becoming a reality. So I think just allow yourself to sit with things, see if you like it, and be willing to revert back if you need to. But just sit on the what if sometimes, because sometimes the what if is a good thing. But at one point you have to just do it. You know, you have to write it out. And I think the best way to find out if the what if is worth it is write it the fuck out. And if it reads terribly, then you know it was a bad idea. Hopefully all of that was somewhat helpful to you all. I enjoyed this, so I'll actually be doing more of these if you want to ask more questions. Ask whatever questions you want. I was actually surprised there wasn't many about marketing. So I was interested there. But again, thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in my books, they're linked down below. Go check them out. But most importantly, the most important thing, the thing that I want you all to take away from this video specifically, is just fucking start writing, because we need your damn stories.